Hello. Thanks for joining me in this historic moment where I attempt to put out my first ever YouTube video. So, I never imagined I would be starting a YouTube channel for myself. I mean, I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, but I just feel like running your own channel is a whole another story. Like some kind of a weird coincidence, I ended up listening to this podcast episode, and it was basically about why we should bring whimsy back in our lives, and one of the things we can do to bring whimsy back in life is to do something creative. And yeah, I just felt like maybe this is a sign. Maybe the universe is telling me to start doing something creative.
She was a fairy.
Well, I'm not sure yet where this channel is going to go, but I do want to explore and I want to keep my doors opened. But the first book I've picked is Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. This is actually the first book I remember reading. Since the reason why I'm doing YouTube is to bring whimsy back in life, I just thought it would be meaningful to, reread the first ever YA book I've ever read and revisit my adolescent life. So the book is set in 1986 and takes place in Omaha, Nebraska. There are two main characters, Eleanor and Park, which is pretty obvious since they're the names of the book. And Eleanor is new in town. The story begins basically by Eleanor ending up sitting right next to Park on the school bus. And what starts as this quiet bus ride turns into something more. So Park has 4 family members, including himself. So his dad, his mom, his brother Josh, and Park himself. His dad is American, white, is now a veteran, and throughout the book, Park gets into this big and small arguments with his dad, and the main theme with their arguments is masculinity. So Park's dad thinks Park lacks when it comes to masculinity. There are a couple of reasons why his dad thinks so. First off, it's because of the comparisons between Park and his younger brother Josh. It is mentioned Josh is bigger than Park, and also I think it's Park that in the book mentions that Josh was the one who was born with less Asian genes. Second, the reason why Park's dad thinks Park lacks in masculinity is that, which is, I found it very funny, which is because Park can't drive manual. Park's dad is, throughout the book, really obsessed with Park driving manual. Finally, when Park starts wearing eyeliner to school, towards the end of the book, that's Park and his dad's, I guess, the biggest argument, because his dad just goes total silent on him for weeks. His mom is Korean. His parents met each other when his dad was dispatched in Korea, and they both moved to the States. Now, moving on to Eleanor, there's a lot to unpack here, like a lot to unpack here. I just feel like the whole book really revolves around Eleanor's shitty family situations, which made me, not gonna lie, a bit miserable reading this book. I mean, honestly, I picked out this book to bring whimsy back in life, but it sort of depressed me a little bit more. Yeah. Eleanor lives with her mom, her stepdad Richie, and her 4 siblings, Ben, Maisie, Mouse, and the baby, who also goes by Little Richie. I personally had a hard time with the character Eleanor's mom because of her indecisive attitude and the way she lets Ricci get to her, which is understandable, but the fact that she's in a position to protect her children and that she was the one who brought her kids into this shithole of a mess just made me very frustrated. Ricci, who is the stepdad, is first and foremost, he's a violent person. Ricci physically and verbally abuses Eleanor's mom, which leads to him being abusive towards the kids as well, because he's basically setting up an environment where the kids are in constant fear, waking up in the middle of the night to fights, still wetting their blankets, still sucking on their thumbs while they go to sleep. Throughout the book, one of the major plots is finding out who left these sexually harassing comments on Eleanor's textbooks. So it happens one day after gym class, and as Eleanor was gathering her textbooks from her locker, she discovers that someone wrote this really messed up things on her textbooks, and it continues. So naturally, Eleanor presumes it's Tina because Tina has always been really mean to her. And I actually suspected Eleanor's, I guess, only friends from her gym class, BB and Denise, because they approached her first, and I don't know, I just felt like they might be like acting all nice and sweet and kind while putting on masks. But drumroll please, it's actually Ricci.
Oh no.
So what happens is that in the end of the book, there's a chapter where Ricci finds out about Eleanor's box where she stores all her significant, like, important stuffs, like stationaries, cassettes that Park gifted her, little mini makeup samples that Park's mom gifted her. And one night Eleanor comes back home after hanging out with Park, and she finds out that all her belongings are just laying there on the floor. And as she picks up the box, she realizes the handwritings on the box is very familiar. And that's how she finds out that it's always been Ricci. One thing I didn't mention is that Eleanor, throughout the book, was very stressed out about having to take shower before Ricci arrives home. And you know why? It's because they don't have a bathroom door. They don't have a door to their bathroom. So it basically means that the kids had to take showers and use the toilet while being totally exposed. That's why Eleanor was so stressed out about it. And I knew Eleanor was somehow gonna find a way to escape, but I just felt so bad for Maisie. I was terrified for her. And of course I was also very mad at Eleanor's mom. I understand that she is a victim, and as a victim it's really hard to break patterns, but in the end it's your kids. So I just wanted her to step up a little. Overall opinions. What I liked about this book is that as a coming of age YA novel, I think it covered all the, I guess, major topics you experience as a kid, as a teenager. From family issues, body image, the feeling of not fitting in, school bullies, and young love. And I also liked the whole subplot of figuring out who wrote those sexually harassing comments on Eleanor's books. What made me lose interest here and there while reading this book was the lovey-dovey scenes between Eleanor and Park. It was just too much, too much. It was corny, and it just I will read a couple of lines from the book that just made me straight up gag. Okay, first off, I don't even want to read it aloud. It's pretty bad. It was the nicest thing she could imagine. I think this is like the worst. Like, this is the best and the worst. It made her want to have his babies and give him both of her kidneys. He just held her hands, that was it. Like, kids, what's wrong with you? I understand that this book is a YA novel and it does talk about this teenage young love. And to some point, I found it cute, but I think I just wanted some more events, more adventures, or even more dynamics between different characters. However, I just felt like there were just tons of corny conversations between Eleanor and Park. I feel like it would have been okay to tone it down a little bit. As for the final score, I was going to give 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5. Just because I honestly was a bit overwhelmed with the teenage young love scene. I was a bit overwhelmed with horny teenagers. But considering the book was a huge YA sensation, and I do think it did pretty well with talking about teenagers growing up in an abusive household, struggling to fit in, the constant confusion of growing up. So I decided to give it 3 out of 5. Yeah, so 3 out of 5 for Eleanor and Park, my first ever YA novel and the first ever book I decided to cover on my YouTube channel. I hope you have a great day, great night, wherever you are, and I'll see you in my I can't even talk. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.